Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Bold Badass Business, where we bring you secrets to boost your business profits, your business fulfillment, and just to make you a freaking badass. And I'm excited that today we have a badass guest who is going to talk to us about artificial intelligence. And is it really artificial? And also talk to us about how this can be part of your brand. And this is Laura Templeton, who's a speaker, she's an author, and she is quite well known in her field. We want to hear from her how AI can help and hinder you in your brand and why it's really not artificial at all. So, welcome, Laura. We're glad you're here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share with you and your audience all that I can about encouraging people to use AI and just really have fun with it.
I think that's the thing is it can be so fun if people can get away from this idea that, oh my God, it's this new technology I've got to learn. Well, first of all, it's not really new, right, Laura?
Right, right. And a lot of people have been using it for a long time and didn't even realize it. One of my favorite apps that I use on my phone all the time is Otter, and it is a
Mhm.
transcription, voice to text, and it's AI. That's why it's called Otter.ai. Hello, clue, right? So we've been using it without even realizing it, especially in the back end of technology. A lot of folks aren't even aware of how much AI has actually affected our lives already without even being aware of it. So now it's just there's a new awareness because we're able to now engage at a different level with the birth, I would should say, of like open AI and access to the different platforms that we have right now. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we've had AI on our phones for eons, What do you think you're using when you're dictating in text or you're dictating into your emails? Your
Yes.
email inbox, what do you think you're using? That's AI.
Yeah. And even just talking about the algorithms, right? The algorithms, it is automation. It's really artificial intelligence is nothing more than trained automation in the computer in the technology field, right? So it is an automation that's been trained into a system to gather intelligence, gather information, cultivate that information to say, okay, this person here is actually really interested in this type of content, so let's send them more, right? That's how those, it's like you do searches on the internet and all of a sudden for days on end you're getting advertisements for different products that you were like, wow, I never thought about that. So
Yeah, and
it's
think
just
about when you're
there.
in Amazon, how Amazon you might be looking for something and suddenly everything you're looking for a whatever, a little cover for your phone, and suddenly every kind of cover for iPhones shows up, and you know it's in there, it's embedded in there. I like the way you define it, that it's automation. Give us that definition again.
Yeah. So to me, it's the understanding the fact that um, technology and AI is all automation. It's really the machine learning, right? It's everything that's been the machine has been trained to understand. And again, there is no automation. There's no artificial intelligence without human interaction, right?
Mhm.
Because everything is being programmed. They are hiring people constantly to feed information to the computer so the computer has a deeper understanding of what humans are looking for from the perspective of reactions and responses and ideal emotional connections to the content that we are looking to receive back in response to the questions that we're asking. A lot of times I help people understand that, looking at it from the perspective, especially utilizing ChatGPT or Bard or one of the other search engines, Bing, Microsoft has theirs, Google has theirs. And most people are familiar with the ChatGPT platform, which is one of my favorites to use. I love using ChatGPT, but helping people understand that it's really based on content that has been fed to the computer. The computer can't make a decision without humans putting the information in. And one of the biggest questions that I get asked is about the ethics behind that, about
Mm.
content that's being fed to the computer, right? So if our content is out into the world, and think about how much information we put out into the world daily through social media, right? We're dumping large amounts of content. I don't know about you, but as a speaker, I've been trained to give them everything, give them all of yourself, right? Because when it comes down to it, people may not necessarily implement what you're teaching them from stage. They're going to come to you for guidance and helping them implement it. So we have a habit of putting all of our stuff out there so people can really see what we do and how we make an impact. Well, now that information is being accessed from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So AI is accessing that information that we're putting out into the world. So there's a lot of ethical questions around what we're culling from the internet. So there's deep conversations that I'm having with clients when they're creating content. They want to make sure that it still speaks to their personalities. And again, it comes back to how you're conversing with the computer and then how you're using that information.
Yeah, so if you really wanna keep something super secret, don't put it in there, and
Which is
and
like
it
on social media, right? Think
yes,
about
and
it. You're not going to put it on social media. Don't put it in, like if you're trying to keep something super secret, it's not necessarily that the internet is, or the machine learning is going to use what you're putting in for someone else. Now they'd have to really ask very specific questions to get the same information. So the protections of asking for
Mhm.
information is not necessarily it's not necessarily that you don't want to share. It's not utilizing the information that your um, like your copyrighted information, things that are protected, trademarked, and things like that, and IP, right? So you want to make sure that obviously there are things that are in your IP that you want to protect. So you wouldn't necessarily
IP
put it
being
out.
intellectual property, everybody, in
Mhm.
case there's
Yes.
some newbies who are like, "What is IP?
What is
I don't know what
IP?
IP I know IT, what's IP?"
Yeah.
Intellectual property. Yeah, the whole issue of plagiarism, I think, is interesting. There are certainly sites where you can check and see if what you've written has been plagiarized. These are definitely educators are having to be aware of these
Mhm.
because students are using AI to write papers,
Right.
etc. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a shortcut, but, it's the human being driving it. That's
Yes.
the thing, and as you pointed out, it's the specificity of the questions and the prompts you're giving it that are gonna give you great results or not, you know?
Right.
Um, so I think there's some great ways you can use it, for example, to get descriptions. You can put in a basic description of your ideal client avatar and ask ChatGPT to think like an excellent marketer and tell you what are they concerned about, what are they interested in. So you can use it in some very interesting ways to find out information or just to get reminded of information that's already out there, but it's not going to give you original information, you know?
Correct. It is, again, you're calling information that's already been fed to the computer, right?
Yeah.
It's looking for very specific answers to give you based on the questions that you're asking. So think about it as a conversation. One of the things
Mhm.
that I have a new book coming out in January, and it's called Stand in Your Brand, Harness the Power of AI for Brand Success, Efficiency, and Client Attraction. And one of the things that I put in there was exactly what you're talking about is how do you fact check the information that you're getting? Well, number
Mhm.
one, you have to understand the platform that you're using. ChatGPT is a closed platform, right? It is very specific content that's been fed into ChatGPT. ChatGPT does not go out and search the internet for information. Bing and Bard, being on Google and Microsoft, actually go out to the internet and cull information, kind of like Wikipedia, right? So it's accessing information that may not necessarily have been fact checked before it was put out there. So you have to remember that but see, then the advantage of that is if you're searching the internet for statistics, right? So it depends on what you're looking for. When you're doing research on your ideal client, right? What are the things that keep them up at night? What are their pain points? Where do they hang out? all those kind of questions that you want to ask, and doing research for your ideal clients is beautiful. But if you want to go in and find very specific statistics, you're not going to find that in chat. And chat will actually tell you, I don't have that information, because or the stats that you do find will be old. Because currently, I believe ChatGPT is only up to date as of April 2023. That was the last content update that was made. So now they're inputting more information, checking it for accuracy before they actually release it. So the last release of data was April of 2023. So you have to remember that some of the content that you may get, especially if you're looking for quotes or stats from ChatGPT, are going to be a little bit old. So if you want more current statistics, you need to go elsewhere like Bing or Bard or Google or Microsoft to do those searches for those stats that you're looking for. So it depends on what you're asking and what you're looking for.
Right. And when you're looking for data, right, when you're doing research, at least when you're doing it through Google with a very specific, question that you're putting in, a long tail phrase, keyword searched question, you're going to know what the sources are where the information is coming up. And so you can choose, well, okay, I trust the Wall Street Journal, but the, bumfuck USA journal, I might not trust as much. So you can see the sources when you're doing the research on Google. And I think that's a danger too that we've got with the AIs that remember, it's just basically spitting back out what's been poured into it in this amalgamated form, like blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And it's not going to say, well, this is Wall Street Journal here. This is Forbes. Oh, this is Bumfuck USA newspaper. So that's where that fact checking for data is really important, because can you imagine that you're putting something in and, making some claim about X percentage of people who don't even know what a brand is. And then suddenly that's shown to be erroneous.
Right.
And what happens to your credibility?
Exactly. And that's what we have to, it's just like if you were doing a paper in college, right? You had to show your sources, you had to show where you got the information, you had to show that you looked at one or more resources for the information. So it's the same thing, right? It's just the expediency of it, right? It's so much faster to go to the internet to get that information. One of the things that I absolutely love is using it for a framework, right? I don't necessarily tell people, oh, use it to create your book or create your next course. No, ask it to give you the framework, because then it gives you an outline. I had a client who was struggling terribly. She was having a hard time. She knew she wanted to create this course, but she was just stuck on actually how it should be laid out. So we went and played with chat, and I said, let's just look at the layout. Let's figure it out. Within 30 minutes, we literally had the outline for the course. We had all the social media around about the course. We had descriptors. We had introductory emails about it. We just went to town playing with all the different pieces of content that she needed to create around that course. And it removed the roadblock from her mind. And when she realized that she had everything was all ready, and all she had to do was like kind of fill in the blanks, like for the rest of the, like just take her, now she knew what she needed to say when she needed to say it. And it came together beautifully, but it was just a matter of just asking for the framework, right?
And going through
it to create the whole course, right? Because that's where your IP comes in. You need to put yourself into what you're putting out into the world. Your content has to reflect you. And if you ask chat to write all of it, then all of a sudden it's not your content. But one of the things that I love, and I know that you and I don't remember if you and I had this conversation or not, but one of the things that I love right now, I'm teaching a lot of people, and if the viewers can go and check it out on my YouTube channel, teaching people how to create custom instructions so that ChatGPT is personalized to you.
Mhm.
And it makes it a lot easier. Like, I don't know about you, but doing speaker applications makes me crazy because you got to be specific as to what event it is, and you want to make it personal, and you want to tell them which one of your topics is a good fit and why. And I'm like, I spend hours on that stuff. Well, now with the help of chat, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm right. I created the custom instructions. I'm a speaker. Here are my 3 topics. What's my voice? What's my, you literally teach it about who you are and how you speak and what type of
Mhm.
responses you want, and it really gives you a great foundation that you can then go and make little tweaks to it, or maybe it didn't give it to you exactly how you wanted it, and you just go and edit the prompt, right? Or you say, okay, that was really great response, but I need it to be a little bit more of this and a little less of that. So it really, when you think about it as a conversation with the computer, it becomes really interesting, right? Like understanding, like I have a radio background. And
Mhm.
speaking on radio, when you're interviewing somebody, and I'm sure you would get this, especially with doing podcasts, right? Interviewing someone and being able to think of questions on the spot based on what they just shared with you is so important. And that's how the conversations with the computer have to go.
I
And
like that. I wanna pause you for a second because that is really true. So if you think of it as a conversation and really you're kind of interviewing the computer, using a topic that you already know about, right? And so you're
right,
saying, "Hey, here's what I love talking about, and I like to have a warm, friendly tone, and I like to get people interacting and engaged. Oh, how would you name this seminar on X?" And you're basically interviewing chat that way. And we all know, the interviewer, oh gosh, I bet you've been in interviews where you had just a crappy interviewer, you know? And it was just dreadful. Oh my God. I remember one, you'll laugh, Laura. I should have known then I would be a host. I turned everything around on him because his questions were horrible. So I just started asking him questions because I couldn't bear it. It was
yeah,
just like, oh, this is so painful. I just
right.
want to go, lock myself in a dark room and but we're the interviewer is the one who's in control, all right? And that's what we need to think about as we come to chat. Chat is not in control. It's not the one that has the control of this. We're the ones who really control the quality of the answers and the direction that they take. Um, I love what you're saying too about customizing because the more we customize, just like when you go into Canva to design something, you put certain parameters in there, certain brand colors, certain typefaces. Well, the same is true with chat. We want to put in something that feels authentic to us and our brand so that then it's saved in there and we don't have to go in and do it every single time.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't understand that that feature is even available to them in ChatGPT to personalize it and to put your custom instructions in. And you can actually toggle it on and off. So a lot of times when I'm working in chat for some client work, I will either toggle mine off and put my client stuff in there. But if I'm doing a lot of work for a client, I'll just change the custom instructions to my client's custom instructions, do all the work that I need for them, pull that information, download it, out of the conversations, and put mine back in there. And the benefit of that, is, and maybe that's something, maybe that's a hint that I need to give the chat. Like, hey, can you give me, options to have multiple different sets of custom instructions, so I don't have to keep changing them out. But
That would be nice, right?
that, right? See, I'm gonna have to put that. I'm gonna put that suggestion out there. We need to start out. Everybody, just like ask chat to do that. Okay, there we go.
And then
Um,
they'll figure out the way to make it happen because
yeah,
that's a pain in the butt. I mean, certainly you can have it in a document and you can cut and paste, but it takes time.
yeah,
It takes time. And the whole point of this is not to increase our workload, but to
right.
make the time we spend less and way more focused, you know?
Yes. Yes. And it really is a
Mm.
great tool. It really, and that's why I talk about the efficiency of it is amazing to me because it saves so much time. Now, yes, you can go down a rabbit hole. I have
Mhm.
done so many times because I get all these ideas and it all starts to flow. And I'm like, let's ask chat this, let's ask chat that. Oh my gosh, like slow down, Laura. You're like making it think too much. But it really opens up way more opportunity, right? I think of it in the scheme of the of it, that it has allowed me to be way more exploratory in the work that I'm doing, right? Really expand on the work I'm doing and really dig deeper into my client persona
Mm,
and ask more questions and do the client research. Like, what are people thinking about now? What's the one thing that they're really struggling with when it comes to brand communications? How can I help them overcome that? What is it that they're looking for? What are the questions that they're asking? What's keeping them up at night? Because the questions they're asking, as opposed to the things that are keeping them up at night, could be very different, right? Could be very different. And how do we address those questions? And that's a big piece of the research that a lot of people miss out on. And now we have that tool to help us define and refine our brand, right? It's really about digging in. And again, like you said, it's not artificial in any way because it's real time information and it's
mm,
growing very rapidly. There's a couple other ones that are coming out right now, very similar to ChatGPT, built on different platforms and things like that, which I'm learning a little bit more about, and how their intelligence, like they're different on different intelligence scales. So when ChatGPT 3 first came out, 3.5, it was considered to be like the intelligence of about a 60, which is like,
mhm.
average intelligence. So I'm like, wow, that seems kind of low to be average intelligence, but okay. I heard somebody else say that. Then they said now Chat 4 is at a intelligence of 155, and Einstein was 160. I'm like, okay, that's pretty incredible. And he goes, by the time Chat 5, 6 comes out, it's probably going to be about a 3,000. I was like, that just blew my mind because the advancements in the learning and the logic, and that's the key. It's the logic, which a lot of times, think about the human mind. We have to justify things, we have to absorb things, we have to take the information and we have to look at it from all different angles, whereas that's the piece that, when it comes to the computer, if you've got multiple people looking at it from different angles, the computer's seeing it from all the different angles as well, just a lot faster than we are.
Mhm.
And it's
I like
really
that.
kind of cool when you think about it.
It's amazing what will come out when you just you describe well what you do, and then you ask for a 6-month course to be created, or you ask for such and such to be created, and the stuff that comes out is incredible.
Yeah.
I've been doing some different trainings with people in AI, one with Talon McTavish, who I think you know as well.
Yeah.
And there's just so much. I'm looking forward to learning about making graphics using it and
Yes.
illustrations, perhaps for my children's book. So there's just, you know, I think it's an interesting thing to think about, you know, it's not a robot coming up and saying, use this. We've got to use our mind and say, here's what I need to do. Here's what I want to do. What AI tool is there for that? And then
Yes.
we get to research. But again, we're completely in charge of this process. I was on a cruise recently, the Podcasters Cruise, Laura, and there was a robotic bartender. All right. This thing just
Oh my
fascinated
goodness.
me.
That's
You know,
awesome.
it's just fascinated me. And but still, who's making the order? Who's
Right.
asking for what they want? The person
Mhm.
who's asking for the drink. And the
Right.
bartender is just doing the recipe, just
Right.
providing what's usually put into X, Y, or Z cocktail. And the
Right.
same is really true. That metaphor really works, I think, for Chat GPT too, because we're coming in and we're making an order. I'd like to have blah, blah, blah. And I'd like to know what's keeping my ideal client, who's a divorced woman over 50, blah, 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 up at night. What's she concerned about regarding her branding in her small business? And the
Right.
more specific we specifics we put in there, the better the result. And also when we hit regenerate, I have found too, Laura, and this here's the other thing is we have the choice about what programs we use. That's the other thing we really have a choice about. Because if you start looking, for example, at video editing, there are a whole bunch of them. And the price range can start. I found one that's under $10 a month, but they can go up to hundreds of dollars every month. We're the ones who've got to decide what we want to do and then look for something that works with our budget
Yeah.
and to use it for something. So, we're still the ones putting all the pieces together.
Right.
And,
Right.
I think that's where people, there are these people who probably are putting on Nikes and drinking Kool-Aid, right? And saying,
Mhm.
oh my God, AI is going to take over the world. Well, nah. But again, don't put your secret, what you want to keep secret, don't put it out there because it's going to be part of public knowledge then,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and the other thing that we have to remember, and you touched on it, and I really appreciate that you touched on this, and I want to go back to it, is the fact that we have to be very creative in our conversations with chat
Mhm.
and any AI function, right? So think about it from the perspective of being a great descriptor, somebody who has a great imagination and really can explain what they're asking for, especially when it comes to illustrations and books. Like I've played with Dolly in ChatGPT. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Like just really asking it, very quickly to give me just different images, and it's been really creative to play. But I realized, you know, we were, I don't know about you, but I was born in an age where we actually wrote books in school and we did great illustrative images, like imagery through words. You didn't draw it, you actually painted a picture with your words. That was part of, I remember doing that in English class, right? I loved English growing up, so like this like really geeks me out because writing is my thing and speaking is my thing, and being very descriptive and being able to explain well what I want from the computer is, it really lights me up. It's so much fun. But I realize a lot of my clients struggle with that. I've done a couple branding
Yes.
services, and I literally had to tell people exactly what to type into the computer to get what they wanted out of it. Teaching people how to have a conversation with a computer is something that I never thought I would have to do. But
Right.
it is not an easy thing for people who are not used to having those kind of deep descriptive conversations.
And see, that's where being a good researcher is so important because there again, those skills we learn on the internet, like I can find just about anything on the internet, but I know how to ask for it.
Right.
And, it's interesting with my teenage daughter. Sometimes I'll say, okay, do a search for such and such. And she'll get back this really general stuff because she's put in something really general. And I'll say, honey, you got to make it really super specific. Like, what was the weather on X date in such and such island? And what is it usually in November? And then we will know. It will give us really specific responses. But, we've got to learn the skills of research and clarity, specificity, knowing what to look for, knowing why is really important. It's kind of like right now with my clients and my mastermind, and this is true in business. I just find this all the time, just as you work with people to help them get clarity on their brand and to make sure their brand is crystal clear so that you could just say, just do it. And everybody knows it's Nike or, I
Right.
help them get really clear, really super clear about what are the tangible results that they provide for people. Because we can't just talk in these platitudes like I help people get unstuck. Who cares? How many people have we heard say that? It's one of those cliches that's out there. But we've got to ask the question, well, what does that do for them? What does that do for their relationships? What does that do for their business? What does that do for their self-confidence? What does it do for the number of customers they have? And we've got to create tangible, really concrete, specific results and put those in there. And, that is the thing that is very, very hard for people because it requires you to do what? Think.
Right. Right.
You got to think.
Yeah.
You got
And
to
that,
think
and I think,
deeply.
and I think that's the biggest thing is having this. I think there's an inhibition about having the conversation, right? A lot of people are very reserved in their thoughts and sharing their ideas and sharing their thoughts and just get. I encourage people just get fun, just start playing
Yeah.
with it. Just really get creative and ask it really stupid questions. Let's go back to when we first started using Google. How many people it was so funny because I really remember my son actually saying, "Dad, just ask Google." And my husband was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." And my husband is in technology, right? So he works, in technology, but his brain was not wired to. I mean, he grew up on going to libraries, so he's not
Yeah.
used to asking Google for all the information that he needs. And I think we were driving somewhere. My son was driving, and my husband is in the pad. He's like, "Use Google, find us a map on Google, right? Or find out how to get there." And he's like, "Just ask Google." So now, of course, or actually he referred to him as El Goog, Google backwards is El Goog. So, he jokes about it all the time. So now we joke about, him using El Goog. But just think about going back to when we first had access to the internet like that, right? When we first started utilizing the internet for research and finding information and researching and the resources just weren't there. And now it's come so far. And so it's almost like, who picks up a dictionary anymore, right? You either type it into Word or
Yeah.
you type it into your text and it tells you
Yep.
whether or not you spelled it right. Who picks up a dictionary? Who picks up a thesaurus? Or, like my son, we were talking the other day about the history books. I still have history books from when my kids were little. And he's like, "Mom, that's a really cool book." I'm like, he's like, "But it's all on the internet now." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you can find the information elsewhere. And, the resources are all there." I said, "But what happens if your power goes out? Or what if the internet goes down?" He goes, "I don't know."
Yes, I mean, I just know some of these kids can't tell time with a normal watch, it's gotta be
Yeah.
digital.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's been lost, and I was just talking with somebody about memorizing things, remember
Mm.
memorization? And I think there is
Yes.
a total benefit to memorization. It creates, neural pathways for us
Yes, it
that
does.
help us remember that, nowadays, I'm pretty amazed at my daughter gets to have open book exams a lot and so forth,
Mm.
and so if we kinda think about that, the internet, there's so much information available to us now. When I did my dissertation, I would go and take books and books and books out of the library
Mhm.
and
Yep.
tote those suckers. I actually had to roll them because there were so many, put them in a backpack and roll those suckers. I
Yeah.
used a luggage thing to roll them because then
Mhm.
there weren't rolling backpacks,
Yeah.
that didn't exist.
It was not a
And
thing.
yeah, it was not a thing. And it's so interesting, and I'd have those around and I'd be studying, and it really took a lot longer, but in some ways, but there wasn't the huge mound of information that there is now that you have to really understand how to drive that information, or you're going to be getting results that are crappy, you know? Because
Right.
it's going to be the whole internet. You don't just have a library one library to take
Yeah.
books out of. You've got everything, you
Yeah.
know, up
I
until
think
the last update.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, that's the other thing that we do run into. I still love the library. My husband and I still go to the library
Yeah.
and, I just love going and exploring and looking at their shelves and seeing what's there and grab a new book. But I think the other thing too is I think sometimes the amount of information that's on the internet can cause information overload and causes
Yes.
people to almost find themselves frozen, right? Like, I don't know where
Right.
to start. Where do I begin with all of this information? I have a client that I'm working with, and they've given me a ton of information. There's so many different people within the organization, and they're all giving me their parts and pieces. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot of content, right? This is a lot of content. How do we sift? How do we sort? Where do we start? How do we make it all speak to, like really speak to your brand and really where the consistency is, where the overlaps, like, so, like everybody, I think that's one of the biggest problems is that there is so much information. It can cause some people to almost freeze in their tracks. Like they're
Mhm.
just like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. And most of the times I talk to my clients and say, like, let's get back to the basics, right? Let's get back to the basics. What do you love to do? Who do you love to serve? Right? Who do you
Yeah.
love to work with?
What's your
Who lights
fundamental
you up?
message? What is it you're providing? What are your
Right.
tangible results? You know, I
Yes.
help so and so, what group of people or what groups of people do what specific
Mhm.
results, buy through or with what? What is the vehicle that you use to deliver these things, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, we have to get back to basics too, and then we can allow chat to enhance those. Like we can go in
Yes.
and say, take this basic description and make it more
Yes.
energized or make it more enticing.
Mhm.
I've said this before when talking with someone else about AI on here, that I like to use AI for endorsement. So if you're going to write a testimonial for someone, just get your basic ideas down and then stick it in chat and ask it to write it as a great, maybe don't say Flaubert or Shakespeare because you're going to get some really weird stuff coming out, but write it in a warm, friendly tone that is professional. Describe the kind of tone you want and speaks of an educated person, you know, and then see what chat comes up with, and remember to get different versions. When you're wanting to get a version of something, don't stop with the first thing, keep going,
Mhm.
because you may get
Absolutely.
better or worse.
Yeah.
You never
I've
know
done
until
that
you do it.
before. Yeah. And that's one thing
Yeah,
you have to remember is like you get the response. It's like, not quite what I'm looking for. That's really
yeah,
good. But can you write this with a little bit more warmth or a little bit more flair or a little bit more, take a little or ask it to take something out, right? If it like, yeah, that doesn't quite sound like me. It's a little too flowery. Can you tone it down a little bit? And it does. It really does. It's like, okay, I get that. Right. Tone it down as opposed to being all like happy and flowery and all these adjectives, descriptor words. I'm like, oh my gosh, too many. So yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like when you have a discussion with your graphic designer, right? You have
Mhm.
to you have to say, oh, no, I don't like that typeface, let me tell you why. I don't like we really are the ones guiding this
Yeah.
experience. And I think it was it Gertrude Stein who said, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your results. And I think this is very true, especially in AI. And if we don't, there's the artificiality comes, it can be perceived as artificial when we're relying upon it to generate content. That's not the way we want to use it. We want to use it to embellish, to strengthen, to clarify, to jazz up our content, to organize our content, even, but not to generate the ideas initially, you know,
Right.
because then we're going to sound
Right.
like every other person. And right now, I
Right.
get a lot of emails that sound like every other person. Do you, Laura?
Oh, yes, I do. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is like, I've been having a conversation with a really dear friend of mine. I'm like, I am so tired. If I get one more email about lead generation, I'm going to scream.
Yeah.
Or everybody's format for their newsletter looks the same. I'm like, we need to start, what happened to originality,
Yeah.
right? Because somebody else is having success running communities doesn't mean I necessarily have to have a community, right? That's not what I want. Like think about what you want. What does your success look like?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look like everybody else's success. And the same thing with your emails. Like make it personal, make it be more about your personality. And trust me, people are going to respond with it's going to be like a breath of fresh air, right? You're going to get a different type of response. There are a couple of emails that I get, like newsletters that I get, and I love them because they're literally black and white, maybe about a half a dozen sentences, and it's boom, done. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I read them every day. I read them every day. I'm like,
Because
simple, right?
they have something, they have a quality, they
Yes.
have a uniqueness that rings
Yes.
true, you know?
Yes.
And I've always said when we think about marketing and, when we think about our brand, it should be all aligned with who we are, so
Yes.
that the inside of who we are and the outside of how we appear line up, you know?
Right.
And that's what the best brands do. You understand the brand qualities, but the inside and the outside are congruent. And the
Yes.
same in our use of AI. So it becomes artificial if we're being artificial, it becomes artificial. But if we're
Yes.
being authentic and we're teaching it
Mm-hmm.
correctly, how to and customizing like you talked about, then it's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
artificial at all.
Right.
It's just not. It's going to come out in our own voice. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't believe me, everybody, go on and come up with a topic and then say, and now write this in as Jack Canfield would write it.
Yeah.
And choose a
You'll
famous
get a very
person.
different answer.
Yeah, and then choose so and write this in a rap. I had a lot of fun recently doing a rap out of something. I
Mm-hmm.
said, take this
Yep.
idea and put it into a rap. So write this the way that so and so rapper would do it. And then see
Right.
what
Right.
comes out. And then you understand how the teaching of AI delivers based on how we guide it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Well, Laura, this has been really interesting. I just think it's so important for people to realize that this is not something new. It's been around for quite a while, and it's definitely not going away, right?
No, it's not. It's not. So we need to embrace it. We need to embrace it, utilize it in a way that it's good for us, right?
Yes.
Positive, in a positive, affirming way that really helps us to elevate our businesses, regain our time, and connect with the people that we're meant to work with. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It really gives you the ability to stand out when you take the time to customize your conversations and really bring your personality to the room.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So true. So everybody, I hope you're thinking now, well, gee whiz, if it sounds artificial and stilted, maybe I need to look at myself again and look
Yes.
at my business and do some exploration and get clear about those messaging, the basic messaging that you've got in your business.
Right.
As you said, who do you serve? What do you provide? What are the tangibles? What are the adjectives that describe you and your business? And what are the vehicles you use? And once you get those things in there and you get clear on them, you're going to find that and you get clear on your tone, because I do curse and I do use words like kick ass and gentle butt kick and badass. And that's part of my brand, is that sassy, right? It's not going to work for somebody else, but for me, that's authentic. And to really understand, that people appreciate you for who you are, and they don't want a clone of everybody else.
Right.
They
Right.
don't.
Absolutely.
There are a
Absolutely.
million people who are speakers and authors, right? There are a
Yeah.
million people who are podcast hosts. There are a million people who do insurance. Somebody's going to come to you because of who you are and how you show up. And so it's very important that comes into your instructions that you give AI and that you stay in control of it. Well, Laura, do you have a gift? We love gifts here on Bold Badass Business. Do you have a gift that you'd like to give someone? An ebook or a report or anything else like that? What do you have that you'd love to share? Is there
I
some
do. I
info?
actually, and I will get you the information. I don't know if I share this with you, but I actually have a client research guide that I would love to share for folks to play with on ChatGPT. So happy
Wonderful.
to share that.
I love that. And where do they get it? What's the website?
Um, right. The website is 30secondsuccess.com. And I will make sure that I drop the link for you guys too.
All right, 30secondsuccess.com. And I'm also going to be creating a vault. We're working on it now where everyone will have all of the gifts that have been there. So they'll be able to find that there. But for now, everybody go to 30secondsuccess.com and grab this guide. Does it have prompts in it? Does it have checklists? What does it have in it, Laura? Just give us a quick
It's
little.
actually it's a guide on how to do research, what questions to ask ChatGPT
Nice.
about your ideal client, what information you want to tell your ideal client about you, or I'm sorry, what information you want to tell ChatGPT about you, who you love to work with, and then the questions to ask about your ideal clients to help you get more really dig into who they are. And what I find when I do that kind of work with clients and we go deeper into it, people come out having a better understanding of who they really want to work with and who
Mhm.
really needs their services so that they can then use that information to create content that starts attracting their ideal clients to them as opposed to them having to go out and find them.
Yeah, and you get to repel the people you don't wanna work with, which is
Yes.
just as important. It's
Yeah.
both attract the right ones and repel the ones you don't wanna work with. So, Laura, this has been so helpful, and everybody, remember, I also have a special gift for you at spirited-solutions.com, spirited-solutions.com, and that is how to overcome overwhelm in 7 easy steps. And I know some of you are feeling overwhelmed by AA and AI and all the AA. We should have, AI anonymous, right? For people who can't stop using AI. Some of you are just feeling overwhelmed already with just what we've talked about, but just get that beginner's mind, that going back, as they say in Buddhism, go back to beginner's mind when you just started something and all the wonder and excitement, and play with it. As Laura said, just get in there and play, experiment, and ask some dumb questions and ask some silly questions. Ask for different people to ask the AI to write like this person or write like this person or create a rap or create an opera song and see what comes out, and just have some fun, because it will help you learn to use it, but you'll also become more comfortable with experimentation. And that's really important. We got to be innovative. We don't want to be the same old like everybody else. Because when we are, we're not a bold badass, are we, you all? And we're here to be bold badasses. Even if you're not feeling like a bold badass, you obviously are, because you're here. And make sure that you're here every Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Don't miss a single episode, because we have so many incredible business guests coming on and giving you things that you can chew on and immediately implement, and gifts every week. Oh my God, gifts. Laura, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been really illuminating. And everybody go to 30secondsuccess.com and grab your guide that Laura offered you. And I'll see you next week. Like, share, comment. Don't let this be a secret. Share it out with your friends who are in business and those who are thinking about starting a badass business. See you next week.